the obvious, plus some other top stories of the day. Our good friend Howie Carr, talk show host, WRKO Radio in Boston, and columnist for the Boston Herald. Howie, this stuff, it's stranger than fiction. What is the deal with these 3 Afghan soldiers?
I don't know, JD. I've never been to Kabul, but I have been to the Cape Cod Mall in Hyannis many times, and I'm thinking that they probably thought that this is a nicer place to shop than the Kabul market, and you don't have to worry about getting blown up either when you're out shopping. This is also in Hyannis. It's right near the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport. They could have just hoofed it over there, and someone could have, I don't know, given them a drink, showed them around the place. And this morning now, the welfare, the joke around here is that the welfare offices are open again, Department of Transitional Assistance. So that's the best place to stake them out, considering they're newcomers to our land, and they don't seem to they don't have any real papers. So they ought to just hang out at the welfare office, get their EBT card, get their mass help. Get some Section 8 housing. We'll make it very comfortable for them here in Massachusetts.
While that has been the reaction to other illegals in our nation, what we've heard from the government is that, hey, these 3 Afghan soldiers, quote, pose no security threat. Why would the government go to such lengths to tell us that?
That's what the government always does, JD. Last spring, there's a place called the Quabbin Reservoir. It's 3 towns that were flooded back in the 1930s to provide clean, really good drinking water for Boston. They discovered at early one morning, about 2 a.m., just because the cops were chasing a drunk driver, they discovered 7 students from Muslim nations just walking around the Quabbin Reservoir. Huge, huge reservoir. Would have been very difficult to poison, but the cops just picked them up, charged them with trespassing, and then released them on their own recognizance, and no one has ever seen them again. I mean, there are a lot of mysterious things that happen across the country with students from the Mid-East or from East Asia, and the government just seems to have this one-size-fits-all explanation. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along.
Well, and again, that brings us back to these 3 Afghans. As far as you know, there's not a dragnet, not a mad hunt going on the part of any police agency there.
No, I'll tell you one thing. If they get out of uniform, JD, at the Cape Cod Mall, they will. If they're not speaking English, and they just act in a sort of a non-American way, they'll fit in perfectly. I remember going down one time from a book signing at the Cape Cod Mall with 2 cops. They were my security detail because I had so many people coming to my signing, and we were leaving and walking out, and I said, hey, I said, I think I've seen about 100 people you guys could arrest as illegal aliens while we've been walking from Barnes & Noble. And they just laughed and said, we never, yeah, no kidding, we know it too. Cape Cod is swamped with illegal aliens, especially now. They don't have anything to do. The summer season is winding down. They generally work in the resort hotels and the seasonal restaurants, and now they're just hanging around and going down to the welfare office to get ready for the winter.
And you and I have spoken before about the big Senate campaign in New Hampshire, how Scott Brown is trying to make a big deal about illegal immigration. Well, it's curious now. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is launching its second ad of that New Hampshire U.S. Senate campaign. This one is focusing on Jeanne Shaheen's vote in favor of the Affordable Care Act. Let's listen to it, then we'll get your reaction.
Senators are meant to be a check and balance on the White House. But in voting for Obamacare, Jeanne Shaheen parroted the Obama administration's promise. But the Obama administration admitted this was not the case, and New Hampshire families and seniors are left to face the consequences. Say no to Jeanne Shaheen and the Obama administration agenda. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Now, Howie, maybe you and I are up to our earlobes in politics, but I see that ad from the Chamber of Commerce, the biggest establishment advocate for amnesty. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but after taking over the seat formerly held by Ted Kennedy, didn't Scott Brown, as a Massachusetts senator, make a couple of votes in favor of Obamacare?
No, I think the thing was he was elected to be the 41st senator to stop Obamacare because they needed the 44 votes, but then they pulled a little legislative sleight of hand so they could push it through without having to have 60 votes, and that sort of deprived him of his chance. I think that Scott Brown is riding a tide right now, JD, of the fact that Obama is so unpopular in New Hampshire. His favorability rating has now fallen to 34%. That's really amazing. Last week, too, the Brown campaign put out a story. Jeanne Shaheen has been claiming that she has small business experience. She and her husband used to own a leather trading silver shop 30 plus years ago. And it turns out that this shop was allegedly being used as a fencing operation, and her husband's brother-in-law, a state senator from New Hampshire, actually was convicted of buying stolen silver from Maine and New Hampshire. And now she's claiming that this is terribly unfair, that the Brown administration, that she was never linked to the thefts. She was just an owner of the shop that was linked to the thefts, and it was her husband's brother-in-law, not her, that was convicted of theft. So they, of course, they're claiming Republican dirty tricks, but it's a pretty interesting story. I'm surprised the Sununu's didn't bring it up in the first two campaigns against her.
Well, maybe it's opposition research, but the fact is that Jeanne Shaheen has her hands full with Scott Brown. Howie, we will continue to monitor that race, given your unique ability to take a look at it. And as always, we enjoy it when you join us with just the outrageous behavior on the part of law enforcement and government in that unique part of the world. Howie Carr, thanks for Skyping in this morning from Massachusetts.
I'll call you, JD, if I see those Afghans down at the welfare office.
That's a deal, pal. We look forward to your call, Howie. Now, moving along, your take on the 3 missing Afghan soldiers. What do you think should happen? Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum.